Askreddit asks, what's the best, scariest, most interesting internet rabbit hole you have found?
There's this well-known playlist on YouTube called Important Videos. It has about 300 videos that are mostly short and stupidly funny.
Boots and pants and boots and pants. Yee.
Really, a lot of those meme playlists are a deep dive into how strange our culture has gotten.
I was an active Mormon and researching something for a meeting. I came across a website that had great historical information and didn't at first appear to be an anti-Mormon site. I read that the restoration of the priesthood doesn't have an actual date, and immediately I thought that was BS because since I was a child I had read in church publications all about the restoration. I could recite dates, names, places and what these great religious leaders were thinking at the time. Yeah, about that, this website showed strong evidence that it was all a lie. But I was sure they were wrong, so I set out to prove they had the wrong facts. I stared with the church's publications. But dug deeper. I searched for source material on college websites. I found journals and other writings on URL redacted. I found websites that pulled together information from a dozen sources and assembled it in a way that was terrifying to read. In 2 weeks of near-constant searching I went from a faithful member to feeling sick, crying and wanting to tear my own eyes out. Then came anger and that feeling of betrayal. I spent a couple hours nearly every day for the next year doing my best to prove everything wrong. I prayed, studied, fasted, and in the end I had to be spiritually honest. I had been lied to. Edit. I finally understand the statement, RIP inbox. I have been responded to dozens of comments. I am doing my best while pretending to work. Edit 2. My marriage ended after we both found out the truth. After reflection, we were not a good match. In the Mormon faith you don't have sex prior to marriage, so you end up with 22-year-olds that date. But don't have sex. This leads to getting married so you can have sex, because having sex before marriage keeps you out of the temple, where you are saved. So, your salvation is based upon getting to the temple. Without the fear of losing our eternal salvation and family, the marriage crumbled.
The missing, URL redacted, homepage, search and rescue, the hunt for the Death Valley Germans. I read this all in one marathon session well into the wee hours. Essentially it's about a German family of 4 that were vacationing in the US and disappeared in Death Valley. A search and rescue guy hears about it and decides to try to solve the mystery.
This was an amazing read. Got completely hooked on the story the last time this was posted. The guy explained the searches so well it almost felt like you were there. Would make an awesome novel turned into a mediocre movie.
The Editing Room, HTTP. URL redacted, editing, URL redacted. They are just movie scripts highlighting plot holes and bad acting. How they break down and mock the stories is especially interesting if you have already seen the movie. They usually notice much more than a casual moviegoer sees. Edit. Since the site appears to have been hugged to death by Reddit. You can check the Google cache by searching The Editing Room plus your movie. Here the phantom, URL redacted, search. Q equals cache. YJ6VWLCLHNCJ. URL redacted, editing, URL redacted, phantomenace. HTML plus and CD equals 1 and HL equals N and court equals CLNK and GL equals it and client equals Firefox B.
I might be. Lol, thank you.
Unsnap.
I hate to ask, but the Imager post only hinted at it. Dan was likely responsible for all this. Right?
There's this series on YouTube called the Marble Olympics. I'm on mobile so I'll link it later, but this guy basically made different events, and puts teams of marbles through them and color commentates. The production value isn't bad considering what it is. And you will start rooting for a team.
URL redacted, channel, UCMV8B1Q5 leave 5 year 8 HQKBDHG, is his channel. He actually is fixing to start uploading the Marbalympics 2018. His sand rally races are very easy to get hooked on.
Urangers.
Wikipedia's page on uncontacted tribes. It's fascinating to read about first encounters. How everyone reacts. The ultimate outcome. Every linked page about specific tribes is like its own mini-drama. URL redacted. This forum, which is dedicated to baiting the Nigerian prince email scammers.
Guy convinces scammer to get a tattoo. URL redacted.
If you're into this, you've probably heard of James Beich. But if not, check him out. He baits all kinds of scam emails for comedy.
I was on Tinder looking at some hilarious comebacks and put-downs. One of the top posts was a profile someone had posted of a young lady in a wheelchair. That had a wicked sense of humor around her situation. Well, turns out she was a Redditor. And appeared in the comments section, chatting and joking away with other Redditors about her profile. I went deeper and came across her story, which she'd posted to URL redacted, gallery, WTVDN, possibly NSFW hospital images. So from having a light-hearted chuckle at some funny Tinder chat, to going to bed deeply affected by one of the most tragic, creepy, strange and yet uplifting human stories I've ever read was a pretty strange left turn. If you're still on here, you, life-proof bionic woman, you rock.
Yee.
It's the most wonderful time of the
Yee.
I found out I had a stalker from high school when I was in community college and decided to Google my name for some dumb reason. I don't have a very common last name, but there are still a few other people out there with my first and last name. I was like 10 pages deep in Google. Place many do not ever go to, and I found an old tripod site that had my name in the URL followed by one of my old AIM screen names. So I clicked it and was taken to a very basic page that had a ton of pictures stolen from my MySpace and others that had to have been taken without me knowing.
What happened? Did you report her? Confront her? I hope not, but college kids can be dumb sometimes. I need a resolution to this story.
My favorite is the Sentinelese. It's a tribe that lives on the North Sentinel Island, a largely unexplored island that is the territory of India. They can be considered a pinnacle of a tribe untouched by modern civilization. Their language is largely undocumented, let alone deciphered. Their language also does not have similarities with any other obscure language of any island or mainland Indian tribe, let alone any other world language. All-purpose exploration expeditions, attempted contact or even just a casual trip there, fishermen, has ended in a disaster one way or another because they adamantly reject all forms of contact. There was history of open attacks and even times when they killed a couple of local fishermen. They tend to attack any foreigner that travels too close to the village. But they mostly hide in the forest. Even their exact population estimate is vague, ranging from 15 to 500. Apparently. And IIRC. They have no concept of fire. Fire. Edit. Holy shit and mother of God of all that is dear. Did this unexpectedly blew up? Edit no. 2. They have a concept of fire. They just don't know how to create it. My fault.
I once had my home Linux server hacked while I was away on winter holiday. Logging in remotely from my grandparents' house, I noticed that the server was behaving oddly. Took a look at the log files and found them truncated. So sent a shutdown command so I could do forensics when I got home. What I ended up finding really did feel like swallowing the red pill. Someone had hacked the server using a recent sendmail exploit and resold it to someone who was using it to host an egg-drop IRC bot. I logged into the IRC channel that it had been holding open and found a bunch of people sending short messages like CCs or root. About 5 minutes in, a longer message comes along. Some guy is annoyed with a trade he has made. Someone gave him a bad set of data and he wants to make his own data worthless in return before the buyer can get full use of it. So on my screen there is suddenly a splat of information about some guy who lives in Texas. Credit card, phone number, street address, and the first guy is urging everyone to buy stuff as quickly as possible before the credit limit is hit. Feeling I was fucked, I disconnected ASAP. Left an anonymous phone message on said Texas individual's answering machine advising them to check their Visa charges. and hoped that my lack of foresight in not setting up an IP proxy or anything to hide my own identity wouldn't have either the FBI or organized crime breathing down my neck in a few days.
For some reason, I find the polls of URL redacted, wiki poll _of_ inaccessibility super fascinating. A poll of inaccessibility marks a location that is the most challenging to reach owing to its remoteness from geographical features that could provide access. For example, Point Nemo, the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, is so remote that if you were there and the International Space Station flew over you in orbit, you would be closer to it than to any land on Earth. Edit. I realize that the ISS's orbit is only approximately 205 to 270 miles above Earth. My main point was that it's still pretty crazy to me that if you were here, you'd potentially be closer to an astronaut than to anyone on land. To put it in another perspective, you'd be a little more than one Pluto away from the nearest land. Pluto's diameter is 1,475 miles. The nearest land from Point Nemo is 1,670 miles.
Serial killers on Wikipedia.
I've read the list of unusual deaths, URL redacted, an embarrassing number of times. My favorite one is the guy that died laughing watching a donkey eat figs. Please don't try to expand this list by killing people. Edit. Thanks for all the upvotes, Reddit.
This is the realest story here. Everything else is about memes and dreams. But this was a genuine rabbit hole that dismantled your life. I hope you're living well, pal.
Thanks. It took a while. My marriage ended up falling apart in the process.
I am not religious at all. But I can imagine how devastating it must be for your entire identity to be shattered away like that. Sometimes reality is awful. Great to hear you are doing better now. Closing parenthesis.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to support the channel, and above all, have an excellent day, you amazing people.